بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. صدق الله العظيم. The ayat I recited from the Surah Al-Hujurat, the translation is as follows. O you men, surely we have created you of a male and female and made you tribes and families that you may know each other. Surely the most honorable of you with Allah is the one among you, the most careful of his duty. Surely Allah is knowing, aware. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.
Thank you very much, Brother Khalil Ahmed, for the beautiful recitation and translation of the very pertinent ayah that we are going to be reflecting on. Before I start, I'm glad to see Brother Sarwar Nasir here. So will you please come and say a few more words of welcome to the people who may not have been here last time?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and peace be to you. Thank you very much again for asking me, but on behalf of MCC, we welcome you all. People who are not from MCC, we welcome you. And while we were talking about Palestine, somebody sent me a few things, and that person really broke my heart. The person was saying that Buddhas are killing me in Burma, Hindus are killing me in Kashmir, Jews are killing me in Palestine, and Christians are killing me in Afghanistan, and still I am the terrorist. It's really strange, and then with due respect to you who don't understand Urdu, for my Urdu friends I have a couplet, and that is about really our own country. कि हमको उनसे है वफा की उम्मीद जो नहीं जानते वफा क्या है. We are hoping, we are showing here in this country about the plight of other people who this country itself really does not know what is the plight of the poor people. This country is built on the base of killing others and then occupying the place and then be careful and then be the champion of the whole world. We will hear more today about the Palestine. I hope, inshallah, you will have a better perspective also than what we had before last week. So thank you very much. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be on you. My name is Muhammad Qaisiruddin. I am the past chairman of MCC and was also the past chairman of Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago. And I'm here tonight, and we've been arranging these things because I had an opportunity to go visit Palestine and Israel in the month of July. I went with a group of Christians and Muslims and met with several peace groups, peace and justice groups, and human rights groups. And they are doing a lot of research of what's going on. And in 8 days, we met close to 32 groups. So there were a lot of information loaded into us. I don't think we were able to capture all of it, but I thought that whatever we learned could not have been presented in one session, so we are stretching into 4 sessions. The group was headed by Paul Parker, is the professor, head of the Department of Religion at Elmhurst College, and his beautiful wife, Ann Fortin, over there, the co-leader. And the third co-leader was Professor Enamul Haq, and he might show up tonight, but he's not here as of now. And also, I'm very pleased that some of the members of the group who went with us are here. Brother Zahir Kazmi, please be recognized, and his beautiful wife Bernadette over there. Thank you. And Brother Qamar Abbasi over here. Thank you very much. And these people will be contributing as they can, when as they would like to elaborate on the discussions point that I may miss. We are also very pleased to have Sister Nida Ali. She was here last time, and she said she was that she being from Palestine, and having known the family members over there and so on, she might be able to contribute some of the on-the-ground facts as well. And so we welcome her to the program. And so I'll start with the slide presentation. Last time, Paul presented an overview, and would you like to say a few words?
I'm willing to let you start us off.
Okay. So the last time we talked about land without people for a people without land. So Palestine was chosen by the Zionist movement as the land without people, but there were people living there. And so what were the steps taken in order to create land without people as much as possible? That was the topic of last time's slide presentation and all that. I'm not going to go over that tonight. So tonight our focus will be on a few different things. I just want to mention a few things here. This is not a political discussion. We are not going to advocate a one-state solution or a two-state solution or anything like that. This is a human rights discussion presentation. That we are concerned about human rights here in America. We stand up for Black Lives Matter. We stand up for Hispanics not being kicked out of the country. We stand up for a lot of human rights, Islamophobia. A lot of people stand up with us in support of us. So so the human rights cannot stop at our borders. Human rights have to be global. Human rights have to be everywhere. And so Palestine has been a special situation, but that for a long, long time. The struggle is going on, and the struggle is continuing. And it has not been in the news lately because of other things that have taken over, like the conflict in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and ISIS and whatnot. A lot of Kashmir, Myanmar, a lot of people, hot spots in the world, have grabbed the attention, taken the oxygen out, and so there was nothing left for Palestinians. So one might think that the Palestinian situation must have been settled. That's why there's not much news. But when our eyes were open when we went over there that these struggles are continuing on. And so this is the presentation of those struggles to motivate everyone to stand up for human rights. And human rights for everybody. Human rights for Jews, human rights for Christians, human rights for Muslims, human rights for everybody. That's the type of presentation we're going to have. And we're not going to be bashing anybody, bashing any country, nothing of that nature. We are going to appeal to the good conscience of everybody that if there are oppressive measures happening one place or the other, we have to take account of that and see what can we do in order to relieve the oppressive measures against the people. So that's the introduction to it. So, my laptop went to sleep. Okay, so I guess you'll be stuck with me as the primary presenter, and Paul and Nina will supplement as necessary. And I do invite Zahir and Qamar and Anne to please raise your hands and come on up and supplement any information that you would like to add to this thing. So, there are many things going on. I do not want to make this a 12-part series or 15-part series, so I have to combine some. The topic that we will be covering tonight will be what measures have been taken to divide up Palestinians, and what are the measures to deny the use of natural resources that belong to them, and how the criminal justice system is affecting the Palestinians over there, and the home demolitions, is there any moral justification for that, and a little thing about Canada Park that will be an example of what is happening in today's Palestine. So this is the map of the United Nations, or not United Nations, the United States. Bill Clinton negotiated this deal called Oslo Accord. And this was after 1967 occupation of West Bank and Gaza. There was a lot of some decades went by, and so there was a negotiation and accord reached in 1993 that divided up the West Bank, that was a Palestine, I mean it was still recognized as Palestine, into 3 different zones. Zone A is the zone that is under Palestinian administrative control. The military control is still Israeli, but Israelis are expected not to come into the zone A's, but lately they've been coming in, I heard. Then these are major cities like Ramallah, Bethlehem, and Hebron. Other major cities, the population centers of the West Bank are under Palestinian control. And the second is the Area B, which are small villages spread out, and those are in joint control of Palestinians and Israelis. And the third one is Area C, which is the rest of Palestine. So the way this was done in Oslo Accord was that there was a population center taken and a boundary drawn against, around that. So there are boundaries, circles, all over, no continuous portion of anything that Palestinians can call their homeland. And the proportion of areas is, the zone A area is about 20%, and zone B is another 12%. So 60% of the land of West Bank is under full Israeli control, and that's where the settlements have been going up. And in addition to that, the city of Hebron was further divided up into zone H1 and H2. There was a couple of settlements over there on the east side of Hebron with, I don't know how many, what was the population of settlements over there, but it was a huge population of Palestinians in the city of Hebron, but it was divided up because of the two settlements that were there. And so zone H2, as you see over there, has now become like C area. And H1 remains a B area, A area, I think. So what has this done? This has broken up the Palestinian population, because there is no way to go from one point of area A to another point of area B. They have to go through checkpoints and all that, have to have permits, have to have proper identifications in order to do that. And so the communications between one city of Palestinians and the other city of Palestinians is very much blocked. Just imagine if Chicago was not able to communicate with Indianapolis, or Chicago was not able to communicate with New York or anything. There were a lot of barriers. How would that not hinder the business activity? And that's what is going on over there. And so there are so many categories of Palestinians. There are 130,000, at least at the time of division, of Palestinians who are living inside the borders of Israel. And they are Israeli citizens, and they have passport, and they have regular rights. There may be some differences between the Jewish population of Israel and Palestinian population of Israel, but they do have citizenship rights. Then there are citizens of East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem, according to all the international laws, is an occupied territory, but Israel has said that it is and has annexed it. And so they have given permanent residence cards to Palestinians in East Jerusalem. And there are many rules that apply. And then Area A, which is self-governed, Area B, which is jointly governed, and Area C, where there are Palestinians living in Area C, but there is some complete Israeli control. So the permit regime is so strict. I think last time I mentioned that there is no permission to add any house. Palestinians cannot add any house. Not even they can divide a room into two rooms in their own homes without a permit. So that's the kind of rules and regulations that apply. And I'm not totally familiar with the permit system. You want to?
That's what I'm going to talk about.
You want to mention now, or?
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Nida Ali, and I'm from Palestine. I grew up there. I go there every year. I was there when Tifaq happened. So I grew up as a young girl in the occupied. There was no PLO was outside, and we were living as occupied after 1967. And we were not allowed to say Palestine. We were not allowed to have a flag. We were always hiding in our books. We were like going and starting here and there, and that's how was the situation before this division. I come here to the United States and then go back, me and my family, because we wanted, the dream. We want to go back. So we went back home in 1998 because of the Oslo Accord. Not knowing that the Oslo Accord had all these divisions, we thought Palestine, for us Palestinians to have a flag, and to be able to say Palestine was like the dream. Oh my God, we're saying Palestine. It was as if we really returned our country. And there was a lot of hope. A lot of Palestinians went back to Palestine at that time. Started working there. I'm a pharmacist. Opened my own pharmacy, and started working at the University of Jerusalem, Al-Quds University, as a doctor of pharmacology. So going from Ramallah, I lived in Ramallah, going from Ramallah to Abu Dis, which is next to Jerusalem, was a half-an-hour drive. Okay, after the Oslo Accord fell apart, now we want to go to Jerusalem. We can't go to Jerusalem. That's when you could feel what's A and what's B and what's C. Ramallah as a city is A, right? Then you go to the village where my parents live in, Sinjar. It's next to, it's like northeast of Ramallah. It's big, but in between Sinjar, the village, and Ramallah, and between Ramallah and Abu Dis, the city, it's sea. So no one can go from the village where a lot of people live, but they work in the city. In order to go from the village that is a B to the city that is A, you have to go through C. Okay, what do we do now? So the trip that used to take half an hour, I used to just take my car and go to the university. Now I can't take, there's a checkpoint in the middle. So at the beginning, we used to go to be able to take the car. It takes half an hour or an hour, fine, but we used to be able to go with our cars with the checkpoint. Now, no, you can't go to the checkpoint. You can walk through the checkpoint, but you cannot go and take your car. You still can drive at that time, and in the 2000, at that second intifada, you still can drive in the sea areas. So my dad used to come from the village to the city, so he drives. He can't get in Ramallah. I am in Ramallah. I can't go. So we meet at the border. We meet at the checkpoint. We walk. Salam alaikum. He gives me his keys. I take his keys. He takes my keys. He drives my car to Ramallah. It's inside Ramallah. I drive my car to Abu Dis, which is Jerusalem, next to Jerusalem. And I go teach my lectures, come back, Salam alaikum, I'm close. That's how we did it. We did that for a few months. We were like, okay, I see my dad every morning, that's wonderful. But then, hey, you cannot walk anymore. You have to have a permit. So I went and got a permit, and now we can't walk and you cannot drive anymore. Area C is not, Palestinians are not allowed to drive. I'm American citizen, but when I walk in, when I get into Jerusalem, into the, Palestine or Israel, at the borders, I'm not considered an American citizen. I get a visa that says I'm Palestinian. I cannot go, as an American citizen, I cannot go into Jerusalem. I cannot go into any area C now. So what do? You have to go through the checkpoint. Checkpoint takes an hour, half an hour. A young person who's 20 years old could just return you, whether you have a permit or not, whatever, anything can happen. And you are online, and it's just like, you just get the end of it. You can get the end of it. And then you go past, and you have to take a Ford car, like these little buses. You go to, the university. And after that, they stopped even stopping us from going at all. So it used to take 3 hours with gas, gas bombs and everything and so on. So my husband said, you know what? No. I know I'm saying my life story, but because it's exactly what's, what happened. I can't live here as a 10th class citizen. I want to go back. I'm teaching at the university. There's 2 months left. What do you do? I mean, and the dean of the medical school, he's like, no, please. There's no other person to teach this, can you please stay? So I left, I went to Sinjar. Sinjar now is an area B, and I need to go to area C. You know what I did? And I don't think, some Palestinians are very scared, and they would not take risks. Some, like anyone else, some Palestinians are like, I don't care, whatever happens. So I started driving my aunt's car, who was Brazilian, who had a yellow license plate, which is Israeli license plate, because if you're American or Palestinian or a foreigner, you can have a car that is licensed as an Israeli. So I took my uncle's car. I drove 40 minutes from Sinjar to Abu Dis, go teach the class, but if they know I'm a Palestinian, I would be caught, so I took that risk. But what I did is, in the way, I would take half my cover, and I look like a Jew. That's what I did. So that's how it is. So to go to work from area B to area C, you cannot go straight. So the way usually you used to take 20 minutes from the village to the city. I Googled it last night. It's 58 minutes. And some areas, and I have to Google it not from Sinjar to Ramallah, I have to Google it from a settlement because it's not even on Google. So it's like, even up to today, after the second intifada, up to today, you go every time you want to go from the village to the city, you call each other, is it open? Is it not open? Should we take the chance? Should we not take it? It affects everyday life. And one of my cousins drive in Area C. What happened to him is a settler decided to throw something at him. We don't know up to today what that was, but he died. So you're taking that risk. You're taking that risk all the time, but we're still going. So is that fair? Look for, social justice here.
Jazakallah khair. Nothing like personal stories which bring the things to life right here. That this is what is happening. And now this is the personal meeting with relatives and all that. But imagine business. What do people in villages do? They grow crops. And are they going to eat it themselves? Are they going to go take it to the city to sell? How are they going to do it? All these things cause tremendous hardships on the people to the extent they say, I have had enough, I'm going to leave. And that's precisely the objective of these restrictions over there, so that the Palestinians get out of there and that becomes a land without people. Okay, denial of natural resources. I'm just going to give the example. I want to speed up a little bit. I'll just give you the example of water. Water is a natural resource. The West Bank has a lot of water, and every settlement has they dig wells to extract water, and that water, Palestinians are not allowed to dig wells and extract water from the ground. Israelis take the water out of the ground and they sell it to Palestinians. 75% of the water goes to the settlements where Jews live, 25% goes to Palestinians. So Palestinians end up getting the water once in a week or once in 3 weeks, depending upon how the water supply available. And they have to pay 9 times as much. The same water is sold to Jewish settlers for half a shekel per cubic meter, and for Palestinian, the same water is sold for 4.5 shekels per cubic meter. And I'm proud of this picture. This is a picture from my camera. Our guide was saying that, look, houses over there, if you see tanks on the top of the house, that's a Palestinian house. If you don't see tanks, then it's a Jewish house. So you see, wherever you see those tanks, and there are some houses with tanks and some houses without tanks. And you can see this is being done out of necessity, not for decoration. Then we jump to the criminal justice system. And here I am quoting an article that I read and written by a member of J Street. J Street is a Jewish organization, and they are very liberal, and they are opposed to many of the policies of the Israelis right now. They do oppose BDS, saying that BDS will hurt Israel, but other than that, they are very much sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. And read the quote. And this is J Street did the same thing that Paul did. That took a group of Jews and Christians over there on a mission. That they went to a refugee camp to build something, and they saw it. And in the process, they still saw various things. And here, he says, during the trip, I witnessed moments of cruelty that have nothing to do with keeping Israel safe and everything to do with intimidation and dispossession. This is coming from the observation that was made, and obviously that was an interfaith group. There were Jews included in that group who were helping to build the houses and settlements, and actually they were bringing, in this particular article, they talk about bringing a refugee back to their home. And so, that's why you cannot say a blanket statement about anybody. And so the criminal justice system include midnight military raids, and they choose to raid a home in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and enter with force, and you can imagine what will do to the occupants of those homes. And then there are juvenile arrests and torture and conviction, and I'm going to show you a couple of videos here. So before I go to the video, here are some statistics that number of detained minors aged 12 to 15 between 2010 and 2014 was 400. 20% of detained children are placed in solitary confinement for up to 30 days. 75% of Palestinian children detained by Israeli forces are physically tortured. 95% of detained children are forced to admit to charges they did not commit. 25% of detained children are put on military trial. 57% of detained children from Jerusalem have been jailed at least twice. So between 2010 and 2014, 2,000 to 3,000 juveniles were arrested. And the conviction rate of juveniles is somewhere around 75%. So let me switch a little bit. And this video was sent to me by our president.
I can't see this thing.
Can you hear the sound? If you see, there are other people videotaping this. These are the peace and justice groups. They go into these things and videotape and make a record of such things happening. And I also want to show you, there is a group of Israeli soldiers who have formed their own, who have witnessed what was going on in the military, what they were asked to do, and they have formed a separate group called Breaking the Silence. And this is a member of that group being interviewed on a TV program.
Considering that Israel mandates its citizens join the army, speaking out against militarism from within the system can be challenging to say the least. It's an experience that my next guest went through firsthand in trying to expose crimes he witnessed as a soldier in the IDF. His name is Iran Efrati, and earlier this summer he was arrested by Israeli authorities after conducting
Is the noise coming from the laptop or the thing?
Yeah, the sound was working fine before. It's not working well, Brother Sadiq.
So let's talk about systemic racism in Israeli society. One 3-year case study of a public school in the country, one student says in response to a student, she said, didn't hate Arabs, quote, I was ready to throw a brick at her head and kill her, and my opinion, all the leftists are Israel haters. Those people have no place in our country, both the Arabs and the leftists. Iran, as someone who grew up in Israel, is this type of sentiment more common than not?
Yes, of course. The Israeli society is very much in a national identity, is very much in a fascist identity, but we need to ask ourselves the real questions, like why is that? Why is nobody talking about what is the interest to stuff like taking more land from Palestinians, or grabbing more settlements, expanding the settlements, or attacking in Gaza, like the last offensive, the last massacre in the summer of 2014 right now. I think people should ask themselves, because the beneficiary of this situation are not the Israeli public, it's not the kids in the school, it's not the fascism in the street. The people that really get something out of it is the people that run the country. And not only Israel, also here in the US and people in Europe.
Indeed. And you grew up with relatives who were Holocaust survivors. What was that moment that you realized how the plight of your own family related to the plight of Palestinians?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat this?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So you grew up with relatives who were Holocaust survivors. Of course, there's that amazing speech of you online talking about your story. I wanted you to go over that moment that you realized how the plight of your own family related to those of Palestinians.
Well, I grew up in Jerusalem in a house full of officers. I was supposed to be the next officer in line. I'm coming from a very good family in Jerusalem. My grandpa was a war hero from 48 and before 48. He also fought against the British colonial in Israel in the Irgun. My grandma from my other side is an Auschwitz survivor. All of her family were killed in Auschwitz. She's the only survivor of those family. When I was growing up with her, I remember waking up in the middle of the night, hearing her screamings, dreaming about the Holocaust, dreaming about Auschwitz. And as I grew up, I understood from everybody, from my parents, my teachers, my friends, that the only way that I can stop a second Holocaust from happening to my grandma or to my friends or family is to join the army to the best unit I can and stop the second Holocaust from happening. But when I'm joining the army and going through boot camp, I'm getting ready for a war. But ending boot camp, I don't find myself in one. I find myself in the occupied territories, policing people in Hebron, El Halil, a city in the middle of Palestine counting 180,000 Palestinians, and in the middle of it, a settlement of 800 Jewish settlers. And I'm there supposedly to protect them. But actually, I'm there to put terror on people in Palestine. I'm there to police every minute of their life. I'm there to take their life and control it, to go into their houses in the middle of the night, to arrest them, children, adults, women, young men, take their life sometimes, responding to protest, to any resistance to us, with a very hard violence, with rubber bullets, which of course not rubber, but real bullets, just covered with a little bit of rubbers, or tear gas canister, or sometimes live ammunition that will take the life of one of the kids in Hebron at the time that I'm there. I'm later, after his life was taken, as ordered to make sure that nobody from his family getting out of the home to the funeral, make sure that everybody is under curfew because the Israeli army is afraid of revenge of the family and the relative. So I'm there making sure that the family does not leave the house. And as the father come out to understand what's going on, we arrest him. And when the mother of the child that our unit killed just a night before that, coming out and start screaming at us in Arabic, in words that I didn't understand at the time, I could understand every word she was saying, because her screaming was exactly like the screaming of my grandma when I was growing up and she was dreaming on Auschwitz. I understood that this time I'm not the victim anymore. This time I am the colonial force in the territory. This time, if I want to continue the legacy of my grandpa against the colonial forces, I don't need to be in the IDF. I need to fight against the IDF and against Israel in the occupied territory.
Aaron, thank you so much for breaking that.
And to stop it there, these are all available on YouTube, so you can view them. So I'm going to go back to the slides. Israeli regime of forced population transfer, colonization, and apartheid. Paul, need some help.
So there are, this is too small for you to see. This is a hierarchy of those who are safest from being forced out of the West Bank or the State of Israel. At the very top you have Jewish nationalists. These are any Jew who is a citizen or who wants to be a citizen of Israel. They're safe. They'll never be forced out, or it'll be very hard to be forced out of the State of Israel. There's a new law that Israel has passed that you can be found by a court of law to not be loyal to the State of Israel, and then you can lose your citizenship. It's been used against one Palestinian so far and against no Jews. So a Jew in Israel is safe. Then Palestinians with Israeli citizenship. Palestinians with, so they're called Arab Israelis, but that's an effort to lose the Palestinian culture. So these are actually Palestinian Israelis. They are Palestinian Arab Israeli citizens. They are pretty safe, but they live in what you might call, well, an unequal society. There are over 50 laws that have been documented by different courts in Israel that that give preference to Jewish citizens over non-Jewish citizens. So the 25% of the non-Jewish citizens is this category. It includes the internally displaced persons, the IDPs. Remember we talked about them last week? The IDPs, those persons who were in Israel in 1948, were not forced outside of Israel, but they were made into internal refugees. They can't go back to their houses. They were driven out of their houses. These internally displaced persons, Israelis, they're the second group that is most safe. This third group that is most safe are the equivalent of the permanent residents. They're Jerusalemites, and these are the ones who are actually being forced out pretty quickly. They're Jerusalemites that lived in the West Bank of the State of Palestine. However, in 1967, when Israel conquered the West Bank and Gaza, and then Israel annexes East Jerusalem, they're now considered permanent residents of Israel. They're not citizens of Israel. They can apply for citizenship. It's seldom granted. In fact, fewer and fewer are being granted. It's now down to less than 10% of those who apply for citizenship are granted it. So these are Palestinians living in Jerusalem, East Jerusalem. They have no ID. They're neither Palestinian IDs nor Israeli IDs. They live in between. They're pretty easy to force out. See, these are the West Bank ID holders. I'm trying to read that. West Bank ID holders in refugee camps. These would be the Palestinians in the West Bank who have Palestinian IDs. They can't go to Israel. If they want to fly, if they want to leave Palestine and come to America, they can't go to Tel Aviv and fly out. They have to cross the Allenby Bridge, go to Amman, and fly from Amman here. So it's about a 12-hour journey.
It's all of us.
Everyone in the West Bank. That's these right here, those who hold the West Bank IDs. Here are the Gaza, people who hold Gaza IDs. They're, again, very vulnerable. Those in Gaza, most of them were refugees from 1967. So most of the residents of Gaza were refugees twice. And they would love to, Israel would love for them to leave too. The blockade, the 360-degree blockade around Gaza is an example of immiseration. That's a technical term that was brought out after World War II. You make a people so miserable, they want to leave. It's a wonderful, it's a terrible word, immiseration. This is the 9th group. There are 9 groups of Palestinians. That is, Israel has divided the Palestinian population into 9 different political entities that are ruled by 9 different sets of laws. This is the most recent group of Palestinians that has been divided from the other Palestinians. There are Palestinians who live in the seam and the seam is the area between the 1949 armistice and the separation barrier, also called the Hafrada, the wall. Those persons, about 40,000 persons, very vulnerable. They're not Israeli citizens. They're Palestinian citizens, but the wall separates them from Palestine. There's about 40,000 of these persons. However, there's about 400,000 Palestinians whom it affects because that wall and the seam cuts them off from their farms, their homes, the hospital, their places of work. And finally, these are the refugees in exile. Over 6 million Palestinian refugees are registered with the UN. Another 2 million are not registered, but 6 million refugees are registered with the UN.
And the next one shows the other.
Okay, here you see the Qalqilia is one of the famous cities that has a wall on 360 degrees. I mean, they have to go through a checkpoint to go home, to go to their farms, to go to...
We'll go next week is the wall situation. We'll cover that more in detail next time.
So here you see that this is a close-up of the scene. This is the buffer zone where Palestinians are not allowed to build inside the Gaza Strip of Palestine. 85% of that wall, you want to flip to it now? Do you want to?
No, we'll do the wall next time. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Paul. I'm going to speed up a little bit. Go to the Canada Park. This particular picture is a blow-up of the Oslo Accord map that you saw earlier. I want you to pay attention to that little nose section over here. You know, this was drawn up this way actually at the armistice time, 1949. Most of the Palestinian populated areas were left for Palestinians, and that little nose area obviously had a lot of Palestinians. It was left out, otherwise the border would be a straight border. That's exactly where, after 1967 war and occupation, that particular area was taken up by Israel to build a Canada Park. It's a national park. People go there, we went there, we toured the place, and so this is a quotation from WikiLeaks. No, not WikiLeaks, Wikipedia. Wikipedia. After capturing the area in 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel took over the Palestinian villages in the area, which were then razed on the orders of Israeli General Yitzhak Rabin, with 7,000 to 10,000 inhabitants expelled and 1,464 homes demolished. The lands of the three villages were confiscated and declared a closed area, and only declared public land to be developed for a recreational park 2 years later in 1969. According to Meron Benvenisti, the function of such afforestation projects like that in Canada Park was to confiscate Arab land in the Palestinian territory Israel occupied after 1967. And it also says that the type of trees that were planted over there would grow rapidly, so that the refugees, when they come back, they will not recognize where they are going. So there are, I'm going to skip. This is a picture before and after the Canada Park. It will be, I can give you the slides, you can see it later. But this is an interesting picture. This is again from my camera. The tour guide was saying that there are cactus plants all over the Canada Park, and they are some sort of like in straight line. And they're saying that these are the silent witnesses of the houses that were present over there. The Palestinians used to have cactuses as a border between adjacent houses. And those cactus plants are still there, providing a witness that there were houses on either side of them. Okay, home demolitions. You know, something I cannot imagine. We are now going through the flooding in Houston and the flooding in Florida, and people are going back, and when they find their houses devastated by the flood and all that, how badly they feel. They feel terrible, that they have lost everything. Now, this is what happens right in front of their eyes. Israeli bulldozers come in and demolish the homes, and have three different reasons they do it. One is the punitive. If somebody has committed a crime or killed somebody, so it's a collective punishment given to the whole family that the person's home is demolished. There are administrative reasons for home demolitions, emergency regulations. I'm sure you can elaborate, but I'm going to skip and go. I want to leave enough time for questions and answers. So the home demolitions, there are actually people working over there to stop home demolitions. And you know famous Rachel Corrie? She was killed when she was actually trying to stop a home demolition in Gaza. She was an American girl, had gone over there to work in Gaza, and she faced a bulldozer. She thought that they will stop, but they ran over her and she was killed in the process of a home demolition. And one other thing was pointed out to us was that these tactics that have been developed are now being exported by Israel to other countries. Like for the example they gave was China wanted to build an Olympic stadium, a huge stadium, but there were homes in the place where they wanted to build a home. So they didn't know how to take possession of the home and all that, so they consulted Israel. And Israel told them the ways that they have been using, and they were Ferguson, Missouri. You know the famous case of cop killing an African American. The police over there were trained in Israel, and India is consulting Israel, and who knows what will happen in Kashmir. Are they consulting about Kashmir situation and whatnot? So this thing was also brought out by people. There's a huge arms industry that Israel has developed newer arms. One of the videos I saw, I don't have time to show it to you, that the gun that shoots around the corner was developed by Israel and is being exported to other places. Okay, so we saw this slide last time. So I'm going to stop here, and unless Brother Zahir, do you want to add anything? One of our co-group mates.
Yeah, I'd like to add my own observation. When I went there, the first day was Friday. I get there about a couple of days earlier than the rest of the group. That was the day when, that was the first day, it was the Jummah, and we wanted to go for the Friday prayer. I found out that mosque is closed. You cannot go for the prayer. So that was one of the Palestinians said to me, welcome to Israel. So, but I'm leading to another point. You saw earlier slide, which says intimidation and harassment. On my last day of in Israel, it was again, I believe it's a Friday, and still the mosque was closed. I wanted to go visit inside, and what I did, I went through the wailing wall inside the mosque. The doors were locked, it was padlocked, and on each gate there was an Israeli soldier standing, and his guns was drawn towards the door. You can see the doors are padlocked, there is nobody inside. But the Israeli police, they soldiers, they have their guns, they are fully armed, and the guns are drawn. What's the purpose of that? They know there is no threat. It is just the purpose of intimidation, to intimidate others. Then when I saw, the second thing I saw was in the old city, I saw a house, in front of a house, an Israeli flag was flying. And that mostly is Palestinian area. So I asked someone, how come this Palestinian Israeli flag is flying? Then I was told that there is an Israeli Jew family is living here. When what they do, they will pay an exorbitant price to buy a house or an apartment. And once they buy it, a Jewish family moves in. When Jewish family moves in, to protect that Jewish family, they would bring Israeli soldiers there. Now bringing Israeli soldiers, they will have a permanent post there that intimidate rest of the neighbors. But the net effect is those neighbors starts moving and they want to sell their property to the Jews. So that's how they make a forced transfer of the population of those people in the area where they want to move the population and bring Jewish population. Mostly this kind of tactics goes on East Jerusalem. So these are a couple of the observations I wanted to share. Thank you.
Can I just add something about that?
Sure.
Let me ask a couple more people. Bernadette, you have anything to add? One of our roommates, group mates.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Bernadette Hasmi. This is my husband, Zahir. When we went with Mr. Paul Parker and Anne and Brother Inamulha to Israel, I was so excited because I said to myself, for the first time ever, as a Muslim, I will get to see Al-Aqsa Mosque. That was my number one reason. And then, I was born a Catholic. So for the Muslims and Christian, I know this area, this country is very special. So when the first day that we were in Israel, we were able to get inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. I was so happy beyond words that when we walked in, the Imam and another gentleman asked us, "Are you Muslims?" And we definitely said, "Yes, we are." So they let us in. We walked in, and then one gentleman said to us, "Since you are from out of the country," because in the process, we told them we're from Chicago, "we would like to show you the mosque." And my husband said to the gentleman, "Thank you very much, brother, but my wife and I would like to pray first." And in the process, we were walking in front of the altar where we can pray. And then my husband started praying, went down, and I was following him. And then I also started praying. And then it dawned on me, ladies, as a Muslim are here, I would like to share this experience to everybody, but mostly to my sisters. All of a sudden it dawned on me, oh my God, are they going to tell me to please go to the women's section? I started crying while praying because of that thought in my mind. But then I look up, and the Imam was, mashallah, in the other side of the, where we were praying. So we finished our prayer, and then we got up, and he came with a tissue. He said, "Sister, you're crying. What's wrong?" I could not speak, but in my mind, for the first time in almost 30 years that my husband and I have been married, I just realized, dawned on me, that I am praying with my husband side by side, and of all places, at Al-Aqsa Mosque. And I just cried. And then when, that will be my most memorable experience ever with this trip. The rest of my experience, I have some pictures. I really didn't realize that I have to speak, but ever since we came back, Brother Muhammad, I have these pictures in my purse because anybody who would listen, and which, by the way, I have lost a friend of almost 30 years. When we first came back, I called my friends, And like everybody else, I told them my experiences in Israel, Palestine, Ramallah, Hebron, every place we went to. And just like Brother Muhammad and Dr. Kamar and everybody else, I took pictures. And these pictures will show you some of the things that we experienced over there. My Jewish friend, which is a very good friend of mine for almost 30 years, said to me, "Oh my God, Bernadette, you have brought the propaganda." I said, "It's not the propaganda. Whatever I'm telling you is what we saw." And I said, "I have pictures to show." And since then, she has not spoken to me. And I am really, really sad, because in my mind, the first people I called were my closest friends, and she was one of those. And still, as of today, I know for a fact that I really don't want to lose her as a friend, but I said to myself, I have to live with people who understands. You don't have to be defensive. And that's why everybody I talked to, I said to them, you know what? I'm going to ask Mr. Paul Parker if I could give away his numbers, because if you can afford it and you have the time, it is so different if you go and actually see what the people, our brothers and sisters in Palestine is going through. And I'm going to distribute the pictures. If you have questions, you can ask me or everybody who'll be there. Okay? Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Anne, would you like to add something? No? Kamar Abbasi? No? Okay. Thank you very much. So we will get, inshallah, a chance to questions and answers. So now we have about 20 minutes, 25 minutes of Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions that you may have.
In the beginning you mentioned that this is for humanitarian purposes that you are talking about. You never mentioned anything political. But question comes to my mind that what happens to this, on one side you have Gaza Strip, on the other side Mahmoud Abbas. What are they doing, you know? What is Abbas is doing there? What part of the land he controls and what kind of things that he does? So this is what he is looking at? Or what is he doing? I'm sorry to ask you the question, but this naturally comes to my mind, you know.
Yeah, it was not our agenda to talk to any political leaders.
But what did you see, though? What is your observation?
My observation, there's one observation I would like to make, and that is when we went there, the day before we went there, they were shooting on Haram Sharif, and a Palestinian, Israeli Arab, shot dead three soldiers, right? Two Armenian soldiers, and that led to the closing of the Aqsa Mosque. And following that, the Palestinians, the Israelis added checkpoints and cameras and this and that, and Palestinians said they will not go through any checkpoints to go to their own masjid. So it took about 1 week or 2 weeks of time for them to pray outside on the street, peaceful demonstrations, nothing happened. And that really changed the mind of Israeli authorities, and they removed the checkpoints and removed the cameras and all that. So the peaceful and collective actions are the actions required to be done. Any questions, other questions?
Can I address it real quick? Just one little word why it's so difficult to answer your question is that you have to bear in mind that the state of Palestine became a state in 1988. The state of Palestine is occupied by the state of Israel. So any government that the state of Palestine, any governmental decision that the state of Palestine wants to to make is approved, disapproved, controlled by the State of Israel. The UN, the United States, Israel's High Court all use the legal term belligerent occupation. That's the legal term for Israel's relationship to Palestine. So Abbas, the government of Gaza under Hamas, they are no more free to make independent, sovereign decisions than France was under the Nazis, than Poland was under the Soviet Union. So we could be very frustrated with Poland under the Soviet Union. And I'm not drawing an equation between the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany and Israel, but I'm drawing an equation between a military occupation. When you're under occupation, you're not free. I mean, that sounds redundant, but you got to get that in your head. Palestine can't make sovereign decisions. They are occupied. Any decision that Abbas makes, any decision that Hamas makes, is affirmed or controlled in some way by the Israeli government.
So what this negotiation that we hear about?
Negotiations are like a jailer and the prisoner talking.
I'm sorry, let's not go there.
That's why a lot of people,
I understand that.
That's why a lot of people are against this negotiation, because you're having someone who's an underdog talking to someone who's, you know, the occupied, the oppressor with the oppressed. So you can't really have fair discussion when you're talking oppressor with oppressed. I mean, you're not going to be free to do anything. Even at the Oslo, it was a lot of, you know, disadvantages, and a lot of, actually, the negotiator left the table and Arafat signed it by himself. If you look at the history, a lot of people, all the Palestinian negotiators left because they did not like this area B, area C, and a lot of things that was not resolved, and they disagreed with it, and Arafat signed it. Just because he was in a bad situation that he needed to come to Palestine, because he was kicked out of every country that he went to. He was kicked from Lebanon, from Jordan, from Tunisia. He had no other place. He needed a place, so he decided to just put his foot in Palestine, in Ramallah, and have Ramallah be a capital. Not in that sense, but just because he wanted a place to stand. That's the situation, and a lot of Palestinians don't like what's going on, but it's still there's no. I mean, what's the solution? That's why here in the United States, or they're going to the, you know, the Palestinian Authority are going to the United Nations, trying to, you know, have a lot of, you know, trying to have the social justice. Because that's what, like I lead an organization, American Muslims for Palestine, trying to appeal to the people, you know, and say our story. And because the propaganda, like she said, people think it's a propaganda. The American public thinks it's propaganda. That's like, no, Israel is like, they're not safe. They're not, Palestinians are the ones who are not safe. Even in the West Bank, where these all areas A, B, and C, even in A, the Israeli soldiers come. They came to my own house and they kicked us out. I slept in it, showered, used our TV, used our towels. We were in, and they did that to so many people. And this is area A in Ramallah. They used to come and just occupy your house for a night, relax, chill, and they come at 3 o'clock in the morning. They force you out of the house, and then they use it. They use the whole apartment building. They put like 40, 50, whatever is in the apartment in one room, and then you have to live with it. Then you go back to the house. It's messed up with like 30 soldiers who showered in there. This is what's going on. This is the story that we have to tell, and that's what we're trying to tell here. And I think, you know, thank you for really bringing everyone here. But the settlements, it's inside. The settlements are inside the West Bank, which is supposed to be the Palestinian state. The settlements are all there, and now I read numbers. The numbers were like they're tripling and quadrupling, and now the settlers are the same number as the Palestinians. And these are inside the villages and top of the mountains of the Palestinian villages. You go wanna get your olive tree, you wanna get, you know, harvest your olive tree. You have all the settlers have weapons. All the settlers come and attack the Palestinians under their trees and try to, you know, kick them out. Then they come and take my house, my own house. Again, I keep saying persons, my own house. It's in Area C. We're not there, no one is there. So they went and occupied it. I have pictures, there's a zoo that's going on. The soldiers went and occupied and lived in it. No one can go there. There's a huge thing. So it's like the propaganda that they try to defend themselves. They're not trying to, we need to defend ourselves because we are the one who gets attacked all the time, go to prison all the time, and so on. So Palestinians don't like what's going on, but
you said the approach you will be taking is appealing to, sense of morality, sense of, justice. Why do you think this is not working? Because the information that you presented has been out there and it's progressively getting worse. And you look back 10 years, it's a lot worse than what it was 10 years or 20 years. Why don't, this is what you're describing, how sparsely the Palestinian areas are now compared to, say, even 1948. This is a blueprint of what the founding fathers of Israel had in mind at least 10, 15 years before 1948. This is a well-documented blueprint, and what you're seeing is an implementation. So why do you think people are not moved by appeals to justice, sense of justice or morality? Why do you think this is not working? Because at the end of the day, we need to do something that's effective.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not working, but if you think what is an image of a Palestinian here in America, image of a Palestinian is a violent person with fire in his eyes and a rock in his hand ready to throw. That is the image of a Palestinian here in America. Palestinians have lost the battle of PR in this country. Their situation is not known. Some people know it, but the majority of the population here does not know how the Palestinians have been brought down to begging. In Hebron, it was so depressing that there were people following us, thrusting their hands through the window of the van. Give us something, give us something. That's what Hebron has become. Because Hebron was divided up and the major business districts were closed. I even have a picture of the steel doors of stores that were welded shut. I went in and took a closer picture to see actually it was welded. Yes, I can show that picture to you. Hebron has been devastated with this division of H1 and H2 and closing of the business districts and so on. That picture of Palestinian suffering is not present over here. Once that picture comes in, people will start to think, why is this human rights stop here at our borders or stop here at Israel's borders, do not cross Israel's borders? Why is that? Those things have to be asked, and consciousness have to be pricked by of people saying that how can we allow this to happen? Especially America. We have a big responsibility to say that because of American support, most of the things that are happening are because of the American support. So we have a major responsibility to all the blame to share if we let this happen, continue to happen. It's happening, but what are, we will be asked only about what are you doing about it. Other questions, please? Yes.
What is the main reason of American support to Israel?
Israel was established consciously as a bulwark against the dirty Arabs. I'm quoting, to control and have influence over oil. It is a way that America can influence through its foreign policy and its allies in control over the world markets. Our military has said this is a mistake. It's costing us more than it's worth. Our different military commanders have suggested to our presidents Obama and Clinton and George Bush that it's counterproductive to give Israel carte blanche. But our foreign policy has depended on it and has made it a cornerstone of our foreign policy. So it's a foreign policy, it's a domestic issue. Our leaders have decided it's good for us to make an ally with Israel. Now, what we're doing with these tours is trying to form a grassroots movement that re-educates the American public. It's slow, it's educational. I would recommend that if you don't go with us this coming summer, you go with Brother Namal Haq in December. Learn, take photographs, talk to people, listen to people. Come back and educate your family, your co-workers, your neighbors. Help persons know what's going on. And we get involved in politics, talk to your congressmen, talk to your senators. Dr. Kay's got an appointment with Congressman who?
Not yet.
Okay. Become political. That's change is slow and non-violent. Fast change is violent. We don't want war. We don't want violence. So build a grassroots movement to change our domestic policy, which will change our foreign policy. It's a mistaken foreign policy move is the answer to your question.
And moreover, there is a very famous book, Israeli Lobby, written by the University of Chicago professor and a Harvard University professor. Both are Jews, and you can look at it. That is a more authentic, more relevant book. And you will find out.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Probably the only Jew in the room.
We're all children. David is my friend. We've been friends for a long time, and I'm very, very appreciative that you came here and speak to me. Okay.
It was painful for me to watch this presentation, but it was not a surprise. Some of us are aware of the despicable behavior of the Israeli government toward the Palestinians. There are so many layers to this tragedy. There are many of us within the Jewish community who have tried to address this issue, to bring justice for the Palestinian people, to allow them to have a state of their own, which is, after all, what we hungered for 2,000 years. And it has been extraordinarily difficult. In addition to the American political system wanting to control oil, there was the Holocaust. And the Holocaust caused deep, deep scars within the Jewish community and within the European community. And of course, you know, when the Palestinians say, why are we paying for this? Of course, they're absolutely right. They had nothing to do with it. But because of some very bad decisions that were made by people, they are bearing the price that the Europeans and Americans paid for their guilt for not having done enough to protect the Jews during the Second World War. You cannot address this tragedy without understanding the deep impact that the Holocaust had on the Jewish people and on the broader community of Western society. It will shock you, after seeing what you've just seen, to hear that the Israelis, and I don't know about the Israelis, that in the American Jewish community, there is still a feeling, a belief, widespread, very difficult to eradicate, that the Palestinians are a threat to Israel. I know this is absurd, believe me, I've tried to fix this for a long time. It's very, very difficult. You, everybody in this room, can do something that I cannot do. Because I have to confess to my shame that there is a great deal of fear and prejudice in the American Jewish community against Muslims. Having said all that, the only way I see out of the gentleman who made the point about the Mearsheimer book, it's another. It's absolutely true, and it's another part of my shame. The Jewish lobby is extraordinarily powerful, and of course, it's the American government that has supported the Israeli government despite the mistakes, the tragedy that they visited on the Palestinian people. So the key to solving this thing is to change American foreign policy. And the key to changing American foreign policy is to change the attitude of the Jewish community. And this is the only hope that I have for this. What Dr. Kaiser-Uddin here has done is so valuable, but you cannot show this to Jews. Where is the lady? You will lose them. They can't face it. There is if they would face honestly what is happening, we'd all be filled with guilt, which a lot of people cannot bear. And we are just beginning to be able to build bridges between the Muslim community and the Jewish community. That is where I think we have hope. So what some people have done on both sides, Muslim and Jewish, is to say, let us get together as human beings and let's deal with a problem that we can both understand and deal with, and that is the racism that exists within the United States. The Jewish community, while it is psychotic about what goes on in the Middle East, when I say psychotic, I mean it does not face reality. But inside the United States, the Jewish community is very, very concerned about Islamophobia, about the prejudice that has been visited on many of you in this country. So my message is, the bottom line is this. I think the most important thing that we can do is to have a dialogue between the Muslim and Jewish communities. I think it is of overwhelming importance. I would urge you to put all this aside. As wrong as that is, as immoral as that is, but it's the only way forward. Put it aside. Let's try to work together to fight racism and prejudice and bigotry in the United States. And as you do that, Jewish people will see what I see in your faces. They will see human beings that share so much of our history, so much of our culture is shared. The way that you pray is so similar to the way Jews pray. If we can get these two communities here together, maybe we can reduce the fear that exists in the Jewish community. Unfortunately, it's going to be a long time now before that will lead to relief for the suffering of your people, and for that I have.
But meanwhile, what do the Palestinians do? Just not do anything for their cause?
I wish I knew the answer. I think you have to advocate for your people here.
Do you know
not in the Jewish community. Advocate for your people in the Christian community.
That's what I'm trying to do.
By all means.
But we all have this question. If the Jewish community wants to stand next to you as a Muslim, for that Muslim ban, if the Jewish community wants to stand with you against the racism of the Muslim, ban, as a Muslim they want to stand next to you. But then as a Palestinian, they don't want to stand next to you. How do you deal with that?
I don't know the answer.
That's the problem. That's what we face at AMP. Like, do we talk to those people? Do we not talk to those people? Where do we draw the line? This is really a big question that has to be answered, and it's hard.
Let me give you a resource. Dr. Alice Rothschild is an American Jewish physician, professor of medicine at Harvard University, recently retired. We had her at Elmhurst. I invited her to come speak at Elmhurst College last year. She has been in Gaza and practiced medicine. She's been in Hebron and practiced medicine. She is trying to find a way for Jews in America to, and Americans generally, to work for justice. And she's done this through storytelling. She's written several books and has a DVD that's accessible on YouTube. It's called Across the Divide. So Google Alice Rothschild, buy her book, it's $10, Across the Divide. She tells her story. Her grandparents died in the Holocaust. By the way, we start our summer tour at Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. That's the very first thing we do. And you're right, it has to be understood from, everyone has to come to terms in whatever way they can with the Holocaust. It's just horrible, it's indescribable. And we've got to look it straight in the face and understand that the Holocaust was perpetuated by European Christians who were anti-Semitic rabidly. It had been for hundreds of years. And this just has to be said, and it has to be dealt with. And as you point out, it doesn't justify anything that's going on. But I want you not to feel hopeless. Alice Rothschild is a Jewish American physician who is working strongly for Palestinian justice, and there are Jews all around America. Rabbi Brant Rosen in Chicago takes a group of Jews every summer to the West Bank of Palestine and introduces Jews to the very thing that Dr. K has seen. So it's not a Jewish problem, it's not a Christian problem, it's not a Muslim or a problem, it's a human problem. There are ways to solve it, and we have to be involved. It is incredibly painful. I come from a Christian background. The Holocaust is mine. Okay, that's mine. I got to own it. And then I go forward. We've got to work to make sure there are no more.
You know, one thing I noticed, I'm sorry, I'll take a minute. I visited the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, and the Christian part and anti-Semitism is prominently displayed over there. And I went through the whole museum, and after I came out, something struck me. There's nothing about Muslims in the Holocaust Museum. Holocaust Museum documents who all participated in atrocities committed against Jews. Muslims were not mentioned. And that gives me satisfaction that Muslims were not in any way contributors to what happened to Jews. I think Jews also need to appreciate that. This document, you know, something which is not there, how can you see it? But I went through, of course, I want to see Muslims wherever they are. And I came out of the museum, I said, there is no Muslim mention here. And I felt satisfied, glad that Muslims are. I want you to take that message, David. Any other questions? Yes.
This is our Jewish brother here. The Holocaust happened in Germany. I've never seen one single Jewish person say that the Germans did that to us, we should give half of Germany. Why Palestine? The issue is, I don't think it has anything to do with religion. It has to do with the interest of few, and they play all the religions against each other, and people are not aware of this situation, then they're following their game. And the Jews who live in Israel are not safe, they're not happy, they're always worried about being killed. The Palestinians are not happy. Who is happy here? You have to find the root. Who's benefiting from this? We are all being played, I think. You have to direct your focus at the source of the origin of the problem. Who's benefiting from this? Just ask that. Because nobody's happy there. The Jews are not happy, the Muslims are, everybody's blaming each other. If I hit this brother, he's going to take his anger to someone who's weaker. He should direct it back at me, right? So, I don't know, maybe that would be a different look, right?
You know, talking about Palestine is not easy, you know, especially here in America. Like Bernadette said, she might have lost one of her close friends. I might lose some friends also, but it's not going to be from my side. I'm going to keep pushing for my friendship and all that. This has to, but on the other hand, I cannot sacrifice something that hold dear to me for the sake of friendship. Friendship has to have to continue, and standing up for what is right should be continued. Any last question? Otherwise, we'll make a. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, quick question. Then I'll ask Imam to make a meaningful dua.
Yeah, Professor Barker was mentioning earlier, a few minutes ago, the reason for the American support of Israel. And you suggested it's economic interest or oil. What is the basis for that? This is the first time I'm hearing that. My understanding is that there's overwhelming evidence about theology driving politics. Rather than economics.
What I have heard people say, I have not analyzed it, what I have heard people say is the occupation of West Bank is benefiting some Israeli families, not Israeli government or anything, but families, and similarly it's benefiting some American families. So occupation is helping, is benefiting somebody, that's why it's continuing. I do not know, I've heard that say, but I don't have any basis to say that who is benefiting and for what reason. Okay, so if I may request Imam Mughira to make a dua for everybody, and that peace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help to establish peace and justice. You want to say something?
I was just,
yeah.
I was just getting not about anything, but again, we are working for this, for the cause through education and spreading the word. I would love any one of you to join us in Chicago, American Muslims for Palestine. We need people to advocate, to join our board, to join our movement. If you are interested, if you got affected today and you're interested and you would like to join us, please talk to me. We also have a convention in November. I sent you the flyers. If you're interested, please come and hear more. We're gonna talk about a lot of things, how to work in here to help spread the awareness. So if you're interested, please talk to me.
Two announcements. One is about next Thursday's program is all going to be about the wall. And there was a lot to talk about the wall, and it shows you exactly what it is doing to the Palestinian population. So please do come next Thursday. And the other thing is about the tour. Did you pass out your flyers?
They're all out there.
They're all out there, so there's going to be a tour, similar tour, that's going to go next summer. Anybody who is interested, please talk to Paul, get more details. Did I hear you right once you said that a scholarship might be available?
For Elmhurst College students, so if you want to enroll at Elmhurst College.
But also, so I thought it was any student, but not just, okay. So if your son or daughter goes to Elmhurst College, you can tell that he or she can apply for a scholarship to go on this tour. Okay? So
these are expensive. They're not as expensive as a 5-star hotel, but they're more money than some people can bear. What I tell my students who want to go on a tour like this and can't afford it, I now say to you, the community has an interest in supporting people who need to go on these tours but can't afford to. If you think this is something you should do, whether it's the December pilgrimage with Brother in Al-Haq or this social political tour in the summer, talk to your leaders here in the masjid. This is something that the community should support. This is not for an individual. No one comes back and puts his light under a bushel. You share what you bring back. And so if you're that kind of person who will share what you learn, talk to the leaders of your community about finding community support.
Well,
I hope that was okay to say.
I would suggest that everybody who wants to go but has some financial reasons, still talk to Paul. And Paul, you reach out to us, the other community, and AMP. So some financial arrangements can be made, inshallah, to do it. And one of the reasons I'm doing all this, and of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do it, but one of the reasons is that a Palestinian woman, when we prayed outside on the road, offered her prayer rug to us, saying that, okay, you pray outside with you're praying in solidarity with us, use our prayer rug. And when we were returning the prayer rug, she, in her broken English, she said, please take our words, our situation to people in America. And I think I'm keeping my promise to her.
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم انصر إخواننا المسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر إخواننا المسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم انصرهم في بورما. اللهم انصرهم في كشمير. اللهم انصرهم في سوريا. اللهم انصرهم في فلسطين. اللهم كن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم أعنهم ولا تهنهم. اللهم أقر أعيننا بنعادة المسجد الأقصى إلى بلاد المسلمين. اللهم ارزقنا فيه صلاة قبل الممات. اللهم ارزقنا فيه صلاة قبل الممات. اللهم ارزقنا فيه صلاة قبل الممات. Oh Allah, please make us be the instruments of good, to spread good and peace throughout the world. Oh Allah, please utilize us to bring people together and not to separate people. Oh Allah, please utilize us to help and assist all those who are oppressed. Let us help the oppressors and the oppressed. Oh Allah, let us help the oppressors by advising them and telling them how wrong it is for them to oppress. And let us help the oppressed in whichever way we can, financially, emotionally, spiritually. Oh Allah, utilize us to spread goodness and kindness and unity and affection and love throughout the whole world. Ameen. Subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you all.